Have you ever felt stuck? You know, that feeling where you know exactly what you need to do to make your life better, but you just can't seem to make yourself do it? Well, today we're jumping right into the work of Mel Robbins. We're going to uncover why we get so trapped in these negative loops and explore two, honestly, super simple habits that can break them for good. Let's get into it.
And this quote right here, this is the core of everything. It's not about some giant life-altering earthquake of an event. Nope, it's about one single, small decision. It's about a choice to do something different in one tiny moment, and that one choice can kick off a chain reaction that changes absolutely everything.
The million-dollar question, right? That gap between knowing you should wake up earlier or speak up in that meeting or just stop procrastinating and then actually doing it, that gap, man, that's where self-doubt and fear and a lifetime of being our own worst critic live. So what is actually going on in there?
So, to understand the solution, we first have to figure out the problem. And according to Mel Robbins, it all starts with what she calls a fundamental flaw in our human design, something that gets wired into us when we're really young.
Okay, think about this for a second. As a little kid, when something bad happens, maybe a parent's mad or a friend is mean, you don't have the brain power yet to analyze the situation. You can't think, oh, Dad must have had a stressful day at work. Instead, that fundamental flaw kicks in and you turn it inward. You think, what's wrong with me?
And that right there becomes our brain's default setting. So now, every time we face some uncertainty or we fail as an adult, that old childhood pattern just boots right up. That voice of self-blame, of criticism, it gets louder and louder, and it keeps us stuck. This isn't a character flaw, by the way. It's a deeply ingrained habit loop.
But you know, it goes even deeper than just a thought pattern. Certain experiences, especially traumatic ones, can literally lock these negative habits into our nervous system. It makes them feel automatic, like we have no control over them at all.
Now, when we hear the word trauma, we usually think of something massive and dramatic. But Mel Robbins defines it much more simply. It's any moment that disrupts your nervous system. When your body's alarm system goes off, your brain basically hits the record button on everything, all five senses, trying to grab any piece of data that'll protect you from a similar threat down the road. And here's the key. It's not the story that gets recorded, it's the sensory stuff. So for example, Mel Robbins talks about a car accident she was in during a snowstorm. For her, just the sound of crunching snow can be a trigger. But for her mom, who was driving, it's the phrase black ice. These triggers are incredibly unique and personal to us.
So what happens is, these triggers fire off that old fight-or-flight response automatically. You're suddenly hit with a wave of anxiety, or you hesitate and you might have no idea why. Your body is reacting to a threat from the past that your conscious mind might not even remember, which just reinforces all those broken patterns.
Okay, so we're wired for self-criticism, and we've got these triggers that lock us in place. How in the world do we break free? Well, this brings us to the first tool, a really simple physical way to override your brain's broken programming. It all comes down to the number 5. Yep, 5 seconds. This is the critical, tiny window where change either happens or it doesn't.
The second you have an instinct to act, like to get out of bed, raise your hand, make that call, your brain gives you about 5 seconds. After that window of hesitation slams shut. Your brain, in this weird attempt to protect you, will just flood you with a million reasons not to do it. And that's when fear, doubt, and procrastination take over.
The rule itself is just incredibly simple. When that instinct to do something hits you, you interrupt that hesitation pattern by immediately counting backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The counting requires focus, which pulls you out of your default thinking and actually wakes up your prefrontal cortex. And then, this is the most important part, you physically move. You stand up, you walk towards the door, you pick up the phone. That physical action is what breaks the old loop and creates a brand new one. So, the 5-second rule helps you take action in the moment. Awesome. But what about healing that deeper wound, that lifelong habit of self-criticism that causes the hesitation in the first place? Well, that needs a different kind of practice, one that rebuilds your entire relationship with yourself. Okay, be honest with yourself for a second. When you see your reflection first thing in the morning, is your first thought a critical one? Ugh, you look so tired. Look at those dark circles. For most of us, our morning routine starts with a habit of self-rejection.
And this is what that person in the mirror is actually waiting for. Not more criticism, not more judgment. They need your support, your encouragement, your celebration. Seriously, they've been waiting a really long time for you to finally show up as their teammate.
The solution is just as simple, and yeah, it might feel a little silly at first. After you brush your teeth, you just raise your hand and give your reflection a high five. It's a physical gesture that says, I'm with you, I believe in you, we're a team.
And this is why it's so incredibly powerful. Think about it. You have never, ever high-fived someone while thinking, I hate you. It's neurologically impossible. The action itself triggers your brain's hardwired connection to celebration and support, giving you a little hit of dopamine. It completely bypasses that BS detector in your brain that just dismisses positive affirmations, and it fundamentally changes your relationship with yourself from critic to partner.
So what happens when you combine these two simple habits? You create this profound shift. You stop fighting against yourself and you start working with yourself. This chart really sums it all up, doesn't it? You replace that old automatic pattern of hesitation and fear with the new habit of 5-second action. You replace that deep-seated pattern of self-criticism with the new habit of self-celebration. And all of that takes you from feeling stuck and alone to feeling like you're in a real partnership with yourself.
And here's maybe the most important point of all. This isn't about erasing who you are or chasing some perfect version of yourself that doesn't exist. It's about peeling back all those layers of criticism and bad habits to reconnect with the resilient, capable, and worthy person who has been there all along.
So ultimately, this all comes down to a choice. The person you've been beating down, ignoring, and criticizing for years, they're waiting for you to see them, to support them, and to finally become their partner. So the only question left is, are you ready?